Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. #Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. Let's get to it. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my good friend, Wes Anderson. Thanks for being here, Wes.
Thanks for having me.
It's a dream come true to, where are you located now? Utah, Puerto Rico? Where are you at right now?
So right now I am currently sitting in Utah, and in a couple days I get on a plane for Philippines, and then from Philippines I will be back home on the island in Puerto Rico.
Gosh, sometimes I want to live vicariously through you, not just because of your incredible beard.
How many times have I invited you to Puerto Rico? You just got to show up.
It's on my list. It's higher on the list than a lot of other things. Is really getting to dive deep with you in Puerto Rico. And one of the reasons that I'm happy that you're on the podcast, and one of the reasons that we're doing this podcast, is because I know what would come out of a trip like that, or as comes out of our times together, as an inspiration for each other's hustle. So in order to get into that, let me ask you, what do we need to know about the upbringing, the journey, the hustle that led to this moment that put Wes Anderson into the chair that he's sitting in right now?
I would say, one of the things that led me here was it was instilled in me that my parents didn't have as much concern about the times that I fell down in life, but they were really watching closely at how quickly I got up. And what that made of me and helped me to be where I'm at today is a very gritty individual. I am someone that embraces opposition, embraces challenges, is nothing more than, do I have an opportunity to fight through? Do I have an opportunity to get gritty and to pop back up? And I think that has probably been one of the most influential reasons as to where I am and why I'm doing what I do today.
How did they do that? How did they instill that in you?
So, and I don't, we can get extreme here and I'm fine. My dad was really, hard on me, and that's fine. I'm okay saying that. He was hard on me, and he expected a lot of me. And one of the things that he would repeat, I don't agree with this, but it did definitely help. He would say things like, if I was presented with an obstacle and I'd say, I can't do it, he would stop wherever I was and he would say these words: can't isn't a word. Either you will or you won't. And he would make me say, I won't do it. And then if I wouldn't do something, we had problems. And so it was like a life filled with that. My household was very much one where you were challenged in what you said. You were mostly challenged in what you did. And it was good. It wasn't comfortable all the time. But it was very, very good and very healthy. But those words echo in my head to this day as, an almost 40-year-old man. If I began to utter the thought of I can't, I have my dad right in my ear: Wessly, either you will or you won't. Can't is not a word. And so that was influential.
It's interesting that you say that, because I'm watching you talk about that and you're grinning and smiling from ear to ear. So it's interesting because you said, obviously we can talk about agreeing or disagreeing with that mode of parenting, but your immediate reaction to a question of what put you to where you are today, and anyone who knows you knows that you are a joyful, jovial, energetic, smiley, happy person. So it's not like we're sitting here talking about depression and that's what led you there. It's just interesting that you take something that a lot of people would look at as a negative, and yet you look at that as something that has been the most influential moments to you in the positive.
I think that's kind of like the formula, isn't it? Opposition. We were having a conversation prior to this about some stuff going on in my life it's pretty large opposition. And in those moments of opposition, of trial, of tribulation, you can investigate deeply why it's happening, or you can look for those little tender mercies of the goodness that's happening from it. And believe me, I've been caught in both. And I have found that when I remember the good and I try to remain grateful and I try to analyze, some of the silver linings and the goodness that's happening, you just kind of get through. But you'll ask me many questions, Aaron, and you have before, and me and you have a very deep relationship where we can talk about very deep things. And I get to these crossroads, and I think as I'm saying this, I'm kind of learning about myself. It's my dad coming in of like, what path are you going to take? And a lot of those opposition moments, it's like, I can cry about this, and rightfully so. And that's not wrong sometimes in seasons and in moments, or I can get back up and let's go, and I have the tendency to uncomfortably laugh about it. And because it's like the alternative is tears. And so like, let's go, and it's a little more healthy and productive for me to do it this way.
I think that's amazing because I don't even know if you know this, but the tagline of this podcast is getting past the why to the how. Everyone talks about their why and everyone focuses on their why. And what I just heard from you, which is super interesting, is when you get to a crossroad, the why doesn't matter. You have to dig deep, or as you said, tap into those moments of tender positivity to that's the how. And that doesn't mean that the North Star shouldn't be the why. But in the end of the day, every single person faces some sort of adversity, personally, professionally. It could be health, it could be psychological, it could be family, it could be any of that stuff, business. And there's going to come that moment where, not to sound corny on the Keep Hustling podcast, but you have to keep hustling through that moment. And without that grit that you learned earlier on, it's much harder.
It really is, and we're a product of where we come from, but more importantly, we're a product of what we do from where we came from, and those constant actions of how we react to situations. And strong leaders, strong people, you can pretty much always reverse engineer, have a knack to look at opposition as very much a lesson, is very much something that they welcome. And when they welcome it, the honest and authentic ones aren't going to say, I'm not, like, they're going to like acknowledge, I'm scared, I'm nervous, but like, hell, let's put up a fight and let's go at it. And let's see where we land on the outside after, it's kind of the dust is settled on what we do. That in turn is who we become. And so it's a constant battle. It's constantly uphill, but it's awesome and it's great. Hey, not to derail this entirely, but if you feel comfortable, I think it's really awesome, like, to talk about how we met. I tell the story all the time.
Well, I would love to talk about how we met. I love to talk about how we met. Wait, but let me just ask you one follow-up question, and then I'm putting in my notes. We're going to talk about how we met. My follow-up question to you is, I know, and this will probably lead into how we met, that you are super in touch with your family tribe, and that you push your family tribe to do things, not to hike, to do things that a lot of people don't do, hike, spearfish, do things like that, and that you have coached your children in football. And my question for you is, have you ever used that line that your father inspired you with in either one of those contexts to motivate your children or your team?
No. You know why? I'll tell you why. That count one, the count one hurt a little too more. Like, it hurt a lot. Like, it's a double-edged sword. Like, it motivated me tremendously. I didn't take that one from him because there was a lot of healing that had to happen because
I hear that. That's why I'm asking. It's almost
I haven't. But to answer that as well, I always thought he would do that to my children. So my father also coaches with me, and he's also very. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. And he's also a very active part of my children's life. When we go to Puerto Rico, he comes in. When we're in Utah, he's 2 minutes away, his house and my house, 2 minutes away. We mountain bike a lot together. In coaching, like right now while we're in Utah, my father is with my son and me 3 nights a week on weekdays, and then Saturdays. Each of those are 2-3 hour stints. And so, but anyways, he's never done that with my children either. And so I think that this was
I hope you listen to this, because Mr. Anderson, here's what I have to say to you. First of all, I love your son. Second of all, next time you're in the locker room before a football game, like a big playoff game, and you're on the underdog, all you got to say is, you will or you won't. There is no can't. And then boom, we break down the banner and we just remember the Titans, baby. So that's better than Al Pacino on any given Sunday, I feel like.
So we have championship on Saturday, and I'm going to put this bug in his ear.
Yeah.
I give him that autonomy. He is like, each of the coaches have their roles, and he's just like, He is like the motivational. He singles players out and does really good one-on-one coaching. I mean, he coached me since I was 8 years old. So he's a savant on the ability to coach. But I'm going to tell him that championship
You
on
know what?
Saturday. If we get
Be like,
down,
I can't say it. You could be like, I can't say it because I have
I can't say
that
these
scarring.
words. So, and then I'll say can't, and he'll be like, "What?
You can't. You either. I won't. I won't.
I won't."
Yeah. All right. I want to hear your. This is fun. Let's talk about how you recall the first time we met.
Okay, and maybe I've romanticized it a lot, probably so, and that's the great thing about me. Something that I embrace is how I remember things.
Part of how you keep hustling. That's how you keep hustling.
So I'll share how I remember it, and you can go in and fill in the details and correct and fact check it. I had always admired, your posts on social media. I'd always admired the man that you were. We had never had much engagement, and I think we were in Connecticut. Is that the state we're in?
Yep.
We were in Connecticut.
I was late to dinner.
And, yeah. Well, no, it's different. I remember we went with a group to the bar after.
Correct. This was after dinner. So I was late to dinner.
After
exactly.
dinner. Okay, you're right. After dinner. And I saw you were getting a little squirmish with like something you wanted to ask of me. And like in those moments of vulnerability and authenticity, that's like when connection happens. So I was like, well, what do you want to say? And you said, I got to tell you, and I'm sure you worded it with wonderful manners and really, really good, but you said like, I've heard that you're anti-Semitic. And like, I remember in that moment, like, first off, you're using a word I don't know. So like, I remember like, where's my phone? I got to Google this word. But I had kind of remembered from a Seinfeld episode, the anti-dentite connected to like anti-Semitism. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think he's saying I hate Jewish people. And I just remember like my heart sunk. And so I was like, shoot, dude, this is crazy. And I remember thinking in my head, like, I'm just like checking, like, I don't think I do. I mean, you're like the second Jewish person I'm really getting to know. I don't have this abundance of Jewish people that I've met. I don't think I hate you. I actually think I really love you. And then I remember in that moment, my brain thought, who do you hate? And then I was like, I think I am a little racist towards terrorism. Like, I don't like Al-Qaeda. And like, I remember, like, I was like, I think that's all I hate. I'm like, outside of that, I'm actually pretty loving. Like, I really love people. And, but it was cool. And I thought about that and I reflect on that often because you had a choice to either just believe what you'd heard and then we couldn't have cultivated a relationship. But it was awesome. And I really respected that you went at it like head on. I always have loved that.
Okay, so this is going to make hopefully for really good podcasting, radio, and video because my recollection is completely different.
Let's hear it.
So, but I will say that, and I just want to be very, very, very clear. Nobody on planet Earth should think that Wes Anderson could hate anybody.
Except for terrorism.
Except for terrorists.
Terrorists and terrorism.
Let alone Jewish people. And I'm going to get to that at the end, but I just want to be clear before I begin. What I remember happening, and there's one very important caveat here, and that is because I am an practicing Orthodox Jew, I don't eat in a lot of the restaurants when there's group dinners. And so a very important part of this story is that we had been at dinner where all I could do was consume Diet Coke and alcohol. And then we were at a bar where all I was consuming was Diet Coke and alcohol, and that's important with no mixers. So that's a great important part of this story because what I remember happening was we got into a conversation. You said something like, "You're the second Jew I've ever met," or something like that, and then I believe you said, "I think someone once called me anti-Semitic."
Yes, because there was someone that was sending a text that I was anti-Semitic. I kept having to do it.
And you said, I don't even know what that is. And then we got into a conversation about anti-Semitism, by the way, very timely here. And what I think is amazing about our relationship was, and I'm going to challenge you on this because you didn't finish the story. The end of the story is it was either 2 or 3 hours that we spent talking that night. And I think we both left, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. We both left that conversation inspired, uplifted. And I remember saying to my wife when I spoke to her that night, I just met the craziest, nicest Mormon dude. and she's like something like, oh gosh, he's doing the drinking thing again. Like where he I can just imagine her thinking like, here's Aaron, like, hanging out together. But what I think is super interesting about how our relationship was cultivated, and from there, probably one of the deepest relationships I've developed over the last number of years. And what I mean deep is not speaking the most, not executing the most business wise, although we do some business together. It's that real core connection is, you probably had your guard up a little bit, being like, someone said that I didn't like Jews, and I don't really know how to talk to this Jewish guy because I don't want it to come off that way. And I immediately was like, who's this psychopath who the first thing out of his mouth is, hey Aaron, I see you're a Jew. By the way, people think I'm an anti-Semite. Like, not the way you would lead on a first date. But the interesting thing is, and it's part of the hustle as well, is immediately we found common ground. Immediately we found commonality. I never once have felt any sort of. And by the way, there have been times. I don't want to get into specifics, but I think you might have been there. There was a time when I was at a professional event where I did feel somewhat self-conscious or uncomfortable with the outwardness with which I practice my faith. But what's amazing is we can probably agree that our religions and our beliefs are somewhat divergent, but in the end of the day, our core principles are the same. Our North Stars are the same. Our guiding lights are the same. Faith, family, friends, morals, ethics, and things like that. Reputation, legacy. And I think that it's interesting that we literally had opposite, memories. But I hope that you remember that we literally spent like 2 or 3 hours talking afterwards.
Oh,
And
I do remember that, and I think that's one of the greatest, unique, wonderful things about any communication that me and you have is, within 60 seconds I'm comfortable with you, and so we can go really deep philosophically, about theology, about our families, and there's very few people in the world that you can have that type of unbridled type conversation, and have that freedom to speak openly, and that liberation to just be like, look, I don't know what I don't know. I want to learn. And I think at the core of who me and you are is that desire to serve, to learn. And so it's really easy in a world that would have us at opposite ends. It's really easy to connect and just have such a beautiful, wonderful relationship because, like, if there are differences in religion, it's founded on such a love, for the betterment of mankind, of other people, of each other, and it's not content.
I actually want to pivot back to something that I actually vividly remember from that conversation. And again, if I'm
Sure.
wrong, please correct me. But I remember feeling so inspired by something that you said. And you said towards the end of the conversation, or I guess it was the middle, because it just went on forever, because we literally just like were hanging out forever. It was like, you said, I want to serve others. And when I meet someone, I try to figure out how I can serve them. And therefore we can both get ahead. And so we were talking about things that we might be able to do together. And I remember thinking that there was this level of comfort knowing that whatever it was, the roads were leading together. And that inspired me greatly and my hustle greatly. And, I'm grateful for that.
No, I love it, man. You are throughout this podcast, going to maintain the why, talk about, the how. I have lived a life with the who. And so, like, the evolution that is business and life that's happened to me recently is like, I'm no longer worrying about what I'm doing. Like, there's just so many opportunities and things happening in life that, just blessed beyond measure. I'm really having a strong focus on the who. And it's comforting in the industry to have people like you to know that there's more of that I can work, I can collaborate with. But the truth of, and I think we discussed a little bit of this, trying to serve others, and trying to make that the forefront of what I do and who I am. When I'm honest with myself, that's oftentimes coming from a place of pain and trial that I'm maybe internally going, that like the only relief that is had is like when I'm lost in the service of someone else. And so, like, I know that the purity would be if it was love, and sometimes it is love and sometimes it evolves to love, but fundamentally it's like, dude, I've got a bag of problems over here. Like if I could just work and help Aaron out for a sec, like I'm going to put those, they're going to sit in the back for a second and I'm going to go all in right here. And I remember talking, a little bit about that, and but then it evolves to love, and it's just like I love being with this person. I love seeing them succeed.
100%. So I want to talk. You said something there where you mentioned that your view of profession and things have pivoted a little bit into how you kind of operate or see things or do things. So, what would you say has been the most pivotal, influential moment in your career, and how has that changed your trajectory?
It's right in line with this conversation. The pivotal moment was when I started to embrace, instead of trying to find gains for the entirety of myself, that the focal point of my business conversation was the betterment of the person on the Zoom or the person sitting across the table. Like when I had that focus and I was truthful and authentic with myself, the other stuff came together. But interestingly enough, the most liberating thing is that if it didn't, I was still in a good headspace. And so, even taking it even a much greater layer deeper, an exercise that is painful that I adopt that has been pivotal is in every single interaction. And I'm telling you, it's everything. It's from the guy taking my ticket if I go to a Utah Jazz game to a coworker, to my wife, to my children. Every single interaction, I try to make it a goal to give someone something. More often than not, it is a close my eyes and a prayer for them. But that exercise is so exhausting, but it helps me maintain a good cadence and flow of service and of that moment, that pivotal moment where I was like, listen, if I can give everything that I have, to other people, it will all work out. And if it doesn't work out, I'm gonna be okay.
What forced you to make that pivot?
Maybe because of other businesses. I've built a lot of businesses in my life, and other ones where it was about me. They just about me and the betterment of me, whether it's a title or whether it's monetary. Those never worked. There was a lot of failure to be had there, and so I think the pivotal moment was like, this isn't working, man. Like,
Was it
figure
was it
something
that
out.
that wasn't working, or when you tried the more positive or group oriented or service of others model, it worked and it felt better? So therefore, you were like, "That's what I want to tap into."
Yeah, and it was
Because
both.
even when the other way works, you're kind of like, it works and you cash the check, but you're like, as opposed to this way, when it works, it's like you have that inside. It kind of like warms you up.
It works because you have relationships like I have with you, and you have individuals that you can go from 0 to 60, at depth of like I will authentically communicate with you because I have that trust with you that you want to see me do well. And that is the same thing that I have for you. And unapologetically, I want to see you do well. And that only comes from a foundation of serving the other party, like to the actions, to if I'm with you. Like it sounds so stupid, trivial, cliche, whatever people want to call it. I like to open your door, like I'll fight you for that, man. Like, and like it's who I am. I want to do that. And it breeds a collection of awesome people in your life that, like, it's a great synergy. Both parties want that.
You can not answer this, but I think you will, and I'm going to press you on it. What about when that doesn't work? What about when it blows up in your face? Because there's no way that it hasn't blown up on your face.
It breaks me.
But yet you still keep trying it.
Yeah, well, and that's the hard part. But I do have, I have with my wife is the one that I do it with. I have these moments, and it's like almost like you're hanging, and you just want to let go because I'm like, I love so deeply, I trust, so aggressively. So yes, it happens a lot, and it's always the ones that you go the deepest with that it hurts the most. But I have to, like, to try to connect the other stuff that we were communicating about. I can engulf myself on the trial. I can engulf myself on the whys, the whats, and the pain that I'm feeling. or I can dissect the goodness that came from it. And I try not to let it harden me.
I mean, how do you not become cynical?
I do, and I fight it. So I do. I have,
How do
and
you
I
fight
say,
it? This is the hustle.
uh,
This is the hustle. How do you fight it?
how do I fight it is gratitude and focus on positivity. Gratitude's the greatest fighter of it. I began to get grateful for little things. I spend, like, honestly, like, I'll go and I'll spend 10 minutes with my children, and like I think about that. I switch my mindset. I switch my environment. I'm not, earlier I said it was never the focal point on the fall down. I don't want to focus on the fall down and lay there and waller. I try to aggressively get back up and get going. And the greatest remedy for those moments is just gratitude and just you just going at it. And like, oh my gosh, it's not easy. Like there's hours, sometimes days, where I'm wallowing and I'm stuck in that pain and I'm stuck in that confusion and that negativity. I'm not bulletproof. It happens, and they're bad moments. I'm unproductive. I'm not good at business. I'm not good as a father. I'm not good as a coach. I'm not good, and so I try to snap out. But they happen, and they happen
Do you hark
more.
back to the positive experiences, or you just push through the negative, knowing that they'll wear off?
I push, hoping it's going to wear off, and then it just starts. I start getting the positives and overlaying the positive with the negative that I'm wallowing in.
I feel like each time it has to get easier because you have that precedent to know that you can get through it.
It has not.
It has not.
Nope,
Interesting.
because I've learned to love deeper, so the fall's deeper. So like,
So
no,
with greater vulnerability comes greater pain.
but that greater vulnerability has also yielded greater connection, and so
Because you love deeper. So so you keep hustling through that. It's kind of like the fall is greater. It's a lower down, but then the bounce on the back end, when you're able to bounce back up, you kind of get higher because you've been built up that way.
yeah, and you go at it deeper, and you. I mean, one of the ways is right, and I'm not in a good creative growth minded state when I'm concealing. And when I'm operating with a governor of like I'm only going to go this hard, and I'm like I'm not giving everything that I have. Amazing things don't happen in those days. It's just like a status, like just a, I don't know.
I find
Um,
it interesting because you keep coming back to give it your all, give it your all, give it your all, give it your all, and yet sometimes when you give it your all, you literally hit a brick wall. And so it's interesting because a lot of people, and one of the reasons why I started this podcast is because a lot of people, a lot of the things that we see out there on social media in public, when we see the people who we end up interacting with, mentors, bosses, leaders, things like that, it kind of everything looks beautiful and shiny and rosy, but yet every single person has had to hustle through difficult times in their life. And it's just interesting that a lot of people sidestep and duck out of the way from the challenge. But I think what you're saying is if you get hit by the wall, you get stronger than you knock it down. And then once you pick up the pieces, but now you're stronger than you were the next time.
yep. And let me ask you this question to you: are you deeper in your relationships with those that are patting you on the back when it's good, or are you deeper? Is there more depth in your relationships with those that want to come and be with you in the times that you're down?
100%. And I think that in order to, as you said, those people can only be with you in your times of need. And I keep harking back to this when I get to speak to people on this podcast in the industry, and that is that, you know, I went through in the past year, probably the one of the most difficult moments of my life, and that was losing my best friend and my father, my mentor. And whenever I need a moment of strength, it's interesting. You would think that I would go to a moment of like, oh, my biggest sale or this moment or that. But I go back and I read the texts and listen to the voicemails and the voice notes that I got from the people who I feel closest to in that time of need. And that is really what inspires me to get back up. It's not like, oh, life is going to be dreamy again. But back to your question, the only way you get to have those connections is if you're willing to be vulnerable. So it's kind of a catch 22 because the only way that those people will know when you're really down and be able to pick you up, or even more than pick you up, dig with you, is if you're vulnerable. But yet when a person is vulnerable, that opens themselves up to be hurt, disappointed, etc., etc. So it's almost like you have to weigh the two. And what I'm getting from you and your hustle is the risk is worth the reward, because those moments of sincere depth lead to the greatest moments of success and triumph.
Yeah, I love in the moments, and also there, like, invulnerability when you're in a down is communicating and healthily sharing that with someone else, not in a sense of like, feel bad for me, let's waller together, but rather like, this is what's going on. Okay. And I need to say it to the world. I need to communicate it to you. What a blessing and awesomeness that it is that people have that trust, to bring that kind of stuff to you. And sometimes in those moments, dude, it's just like, I just need to say it. I need to let it go. I don't actually want you to come fight with me. I don't actually, need a solution. I just need to say it. And I need that person or that relationship that I can go to and say it. And yeah, a lot of awesome moments can be had when you look around in the trials and the tribulation.
Do you ever wish you didn't have that light bulb moment and you could just go back to like the middle road where the highs are a little less high and the lows are a little bit less low?
I think about that, yeah. But I don't wish I'd go back. But I do think about things could be easier if I wouldn't have, and I often do think all as well, if I don't continue to embrace those challenges, to get vulnerable with people, I do think I could have a more easy life because you're putting yourself out there, man.
But let me say this: when the moments of challenge come, and they will come, we all know, then you're less likely to have the people who will be in the trenches with you if you're not vulnerable. So maybe all the risk is worth it for just that moment where they literally pick you up and say, "I'm with you," not pushing you through the wall, but literally saying, "We're going to kick this wall down together." And is that not the greatest inspiration for hustle?
Yes. One thing I'd share with you, I'm going to butcher it, but I read something a while ago that said something to the effect of like, where a man looks, and you could probably put who, where and who a man looks in a time of reprieve will often dictate who they become. And so it's easier. The path is less resistant in a time where you need reprieve or things are bad, to look and like, go to the bottle, that's easy. You just put a little liquid in your mouth, gargle it, let it shoot down, and then see what happens after.
Or by the way,
Um,
not get up, not keep hustling, just wallow in your own sorrow in
just
your bed.
Waller, yeah, like that not do anything, which is a great action. That's actually a very damning thing, is to do
Right.
nothing. But you get those people, and I believe that the two most effective mechanisms, or the two most effective things one can do, or that I found that I do, is gratitude and service. And like, those suck, because that's the least time you either want to get on your knees and pray, or that's the least time that you want to go and serve someone, because why would I serve someone else? I'm hurt. I'm a victim. You know what I'm saying? But like the lesson that I got is, when I was in Florida, and I was living there for my church mission. For the 2 years that I was there, I witnessed people lose their entire house in hurricanes. And like, as a 19-year-old young man, I could see the people that snapped out of it the quickest. They lost everything, but yet they were locked with me side by side, taking trees off someone else's house. Okay. And when I worked with them, it was like, we worked side by side. And I'm like thinking in my head, dude, you just freaking lost everything. You lost all your pictures. You lost all your memories. You lost your home. Like, what are you doing out here? And then the inverse of that, I could see as a 19-year-old, the person that, they got a little hole in their roof, and their CD collection or their record collection went out, and they were like devastated all day, helping no one. And I would
100%.
just be like, come on, man. Like, this person lost everything, and they're just working like a horse out there side by side, and they're okay. And they're at that moment where it's like, I mean, they're going to smile, or I'm going to cry, but I'm going to keep smiling and keep working. And it's just a contrasting thing when you hit those moments.
100%. I don't know if that was it, but we have a closing tradition on this podcast that we ask our guests what their current top of mind or lifetime favorite inspirational motivational quote is. Was that yours, or is there another one?
No, that's mine. I think that's good in mine. I think that, as long as we're looking to try to find silver linings and good in the rough times, and as long as we're okay that we're gritty and we're fighting back and I think we're gonna be okay. I think things are gonna be good.
I have I was once in a doctor's office, and he was Jewish, but not particularly religious, and there was a rock, a stone, on the desk in the exam room, and it said in Hebrew, "Hechan sheyesh chayim tamid yesh tikva," which means wherever you can find life, there's always hope. And what I've learned from you is that there's always hope. There's always hope in the hustle, in building relationship, in building a better future, in developing that tribe, and hustling through everything. So really, thank you for being here, and thank you for the inspiration. And I appreciate you, and thank you for the friendship.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
This has been Keep Hustling with our guest, Wes Anderson. Remember, do well by doing good, and of course, and always, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. The listeners are the most important part of this show. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more listeners. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We have some amazing guests and topics lined up for you, and we don't want you to miss out. And finally, if you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod on Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you to continue the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting our podcast. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.